Recently, I decided to recolor all the maps that you find in Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos from Wizards of the Coast, because they basically came in black and white, and I like my maps colorful. So let's see how it looks like when you put a little bit of color on them. So this won't be a typical map for me. Normally I would build something from scratch, something that I don't even know basically what I'm doing, but this time I perfectly know what I am aiming for. So I'm using a blueprint from Wizards of the Coast. This is basically just importing a PNG or a JPEG file into Arkenforge as an asset, and this asset will stay with me up until the end of this build. Now I needed to manipulate the brightness and contrast and stuff like that with the blueprint image, because I didn't exactly see where the grid was. But that's just a small nuance and nothing, not a biggie. So if you will be using this technique to have a blueprint, if it's white, you might not see how the grid layout looks like. So to adjust that, try to manipulate the brightness and stuff like that. An important thing over here is that I am using, I think, like 95 or 99% of the assets from Mike Schely. I did mention Mike a few times already during this series. He is, in my opinion, one of the most interesting, if not the most interesting, asset creator and map creator that I know about. So you see that from my cartographer content selection, I'm having a whole folder called Schley, and that's just because I have a whole heaps of his assets from Campaign Cartographer 3 and from his Schleyscapes, as he calls his products that he sells on his website. So this is including also textures, the texture of the grass on the background, the textures of the wooden panels on the floors over here. Everything is exactly Mike Schely. I will be sadly using a few other assets during the build, but well, you can't have everything from the beginning on. This is something I did for the stairs. You can see how I make shadows. Instead of using stair assets to make the texture of the map or texture of the wood fit into the other textures, I decided to use again a texture from Schley. So I didn't have a ready wooden stair type, especially a line type that you need to use if you want to build something like this. So I decided to build it from shadow assets. Basically, shadows are your best friend in most maps. I think I actually overdid shadows a little bit in this map actually, and near the end I think I did a few too many shadows than I should have, but still it looks roughly okay. The maps, I did 4 of those up on the point where I'm recording this video. The maps are accessible somewhere on Reddit. There's a DM for Strixhaven or Strixhaven DM subreddit. You can find them over there. Also, additionally, please check the description of this video. I will post the original creators of these maps and all other necessary things that you could or should find useful. Okay. Now, as usual, with most of my builds, a huge part of this is building the backgrounds and walls. The interiors, so the things that we would find the most interesting or most important, are actually somewhere around half of the time that I spent on builds. Most of the parts are building walls and building backgrounds. There's also a big chunk that is devoted to shadows, but yeah, most of this is basically walls. I'm using a mix of polygon and lines over here. As you see, these are polygons. As it is with polygons, they don't exactly they don't fit when you have 90 degrees turns anywhere on your wall, because they shift slightly, so you need to adjust that. Luckily, Schley has additional parts of walls that you can use for exactly those 90 degree turns. the walls were a little bit too thick, so I made them a little bit thinner because they are lines, so it's basically very simple. You just change the line width. There's a lot of doors on this map, and I don't exactly know if they should be closed or open. I used closed doors everywhere over here. I'm not sure if that's how it's supposed to be, but neither the description nor the map itself gave a clear answer to that, so it is what it is. Sometimes I'm struggling with the idea that all the doors or all the walls look the same. It might not be exactly how it should look like, but you have to bear in mind or keep in your mind that maps are only some form of abstraction of what your players or you should see. They are obviously art, but additionally there are abstractions of a visual. There are visual representation of something. They are not the thing per se. You can make the visual representation as natural or as authentic as you want, but still it won't be the reality, especially in a game. Let's just remember that this is still a map for a game. You saw before a second a very sharp turn, like over here. I'm not gonna try even to make that with a polygon line. I'm going to put a column on the end of that later on, so it fits. Now I'm copying the walls, so it might be a little bit easier for me to use it, to use shadows. I'm not exactly sure if I stayed with that till the end with that decision. I think I did change something during the build. One thing that is important when you build from a blueprint is to constantly check if you're not missing something. These maps are thought of by someone else, and if you want to recreate a map, you basically need to recreate the same thing. So if there are 2 chairs somewhere, you build this room with 2 chairs. You don't build 3 chairs because it would fit better. You build it with 2 chairs. I did make some exceptions from this rule during this build, but that's because I found something different in the description of the room than on the map. So for example, there are these semi rooms or these open rooms with the sharp corners over here. I'm working on them right now. One of them had portraits on the walls according to the description, and the other one had bookcases. So they, on the map that we have provided over here, they look similar, or basically they look the same, which is a bummer because that's not what you have in the description. And because of that, I decided that I will change the original assets that were drawn on the map, on the original map. I will change them for something more appropriate to the intended design, or to the design that was in the description. I'm not sure if that's correct from my side, if that's a good thing or not. Well, it depends. It is again just building stairs from shadows, so they look a little bit more natural, and also they fit the texture. I think this is one of the shadows that I definitely overdid. The shadow on the outside should be much less of a dominating asset over here. Stairs look too dark. I would probably fix it now if I would see it again, but it is what it is, and I already did. To make a sleek transition between the stairs and the wooden floor over there, I just used a small line of similar wooden texture, just like that. Yeah, you can see that I left the spot for the stairs on the right side, and I will fix that later. But yeah, I omitted one spot with the floor. Now we're starting to decorate the whole place from the inside, so I just recalled the blueprint, so I see where and what I should position. Now, not always will the assets that you have fit exactly to the place that you need, but usually you can figure something out. So for example, over here there should be one long table, but I didn't have such a long table, especially that Schley does have an asset ready with all the food on the tables already, so that's a huge relief. Also notice that I'm not copy pasting these chairs over here for a very simple reason. Bear in mind that everything should be not perfect. They shouldn't be perfectly aligned under, I don't know, 90 degrees. If something is symmetrical or perfectly aligned, it doesn't look natural. Especially furniture like chair. If they are super precise, they won't look like it's a true chair. Something will be off for the human sight. So for example, the chairs over here, or armchairs over here, each of them is slightly off the axis from each other. Also, the potted plants over here that I'm using, I think that even with those, I decided to make them look a little bit different, because potted plants also don't look exactly the same. You won't always be able to do something about it. So for example, there are many statues over here. I don't have as many statue assets. I would have to draw some assets by myself or figure something else out. I didn't do that, so the statues are the same. They're not on the same axis, but they are the same statues. This will change during the build later. I did use those two carpets, but the carpets will later be used to cover something up. And again, to make these two tables not symmetrical, I'm using different assets that I could just cover other assets up, so they won't look perfectly the same. You see me scrolling through assets a lot over here. I don't remember all the assets that I have from Schley. I do remember that there is an armchair somewhere, but I couldn't find it in the first moment, so it took me a while before I did. And yeah, I will go back to those chairs because that didn't give me peace of mind until I found it. Again, these are the statues that I mentioned earlier. They're not exactly the same. They're very similar, but they're not the same thing. So I'm not just copy pasting with the same position. One thing that I also would like to mention is that Arkenforge changed a lot during the last couple of months. I did mention that in my tutorial videos, the tips and tricks videos, that Arkenforge has a lot of patches and stuff like that all the time, and stuff will really change for better. It's amazing how this software becomes even more flexible than it was, and even more useful than it was. There are things that I can do in this software, and I sometimes, when I'm using Affinity Photo or some other image processor, I actually wish I could do it and I'm thinking about doing it in Arkenforge, because it would be easier in this piece of software to manipulate an image in a way and export it than do it in a professional image manipulation software. What did I try to do here? Oh, this is something that I figured during the build. If you have a blueprint with white and black, so basic two colors, you can chroma key one of the colors, white in this instance, and you are left with a sketch of basically dark outlines of objects where they should be, and this gives you a better idea of how the background looks like. You can just put objects on top of that and just push them to the bottom, so they won't interfere. But you have a better orientation of how things look like. Now, over here, you see that I'm searching for a piano, and I do have piano assets from Forgotten Adventures, obviously, but I didn't want to use that because There's something about using non-commercial assets that makes me go like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. So I again used chroma key with a piano that I have from Arkenforge. The Arkenforge piano doesn't look anything like Schley assets, so I had to chroma key most of it, but the keys are left, and I'll put a bench on top of that, make it darker, and it should look okay in a minute or two. And but you also see the outlines on the lower part of the screen right now, so I'm covering it up with carpet. Yeah, so the map is starting to look like it should look. Oh, I found the armchair that I've been talking about earlier. The map starts to look how it's supposed to look. And I'm messing around with different assets all the time. Yeah, that's roughly because I still don't remember each and every asset that I have in this set. Sometimes I'm missing some assets. Mike Schely is currently producing assets mostly for the so-called Schleyscapes. So for the last Schleyscape was Meadow, I believe. So yeah, so assets that are mostly outdoors. I'm missing some assets that would be for interiors, but I imagine that's just a question of time. The map is starting to look real good. There are things still missing, mostly bookshelves and things like that. And again, I'm using the same bookshelf, and I'm gonna later during the build cover some of the assets that you'll find here with other assets, so they won't look exactly the same. Oh, you can see it right here. Some alchemical assets, some other books that are different from what you could find. The base or the bottom line furniture is the same, but what you find on top is different, and thanks to that, for your eye, it looks like something separate. And now shadows. I'm not sure if it's already the final shadow build. I'm using two sets of shadows over here, an external and internal shadow. One is to outline the staircase, and the other one is to create an illusion of depth, that the stairs are they're leading you upstairs, but there's a shadow over there, so that's supposed to tell you in which direction the staircase goes. And this is basically just cluttering the whole space so it looks inhabited. Surprisingly, this is a very, very big map. I think it's 80 squares or something like that, so 400 feet. But there's not much going on over here, actually. The main room that you find on the bottom part of the map is mostly empty, actually, which is also kind of a surprise. Well, I'm not the designer of the map, but yeah, there's a lot of space that you can use over there. From what I read from other DMs, there are things in the maps that were ordered by wizards that don't exactly fit what the descriptions say. One of the bigger issues being the first map that is luckily colorful, Biblioplex. It's supposed to be an enormous place, nearly multi-dimensional, and in reality it's just a map the size like this one over here, so not the biggest one around. Copy pasting some tables, and again the tables are not perfectly aligned, so they don't look unnatural in a way. Even if you have furniture in your house perfectly aligned, it will get disaligned in a jiffy. I also don't have a sofa asset, but I learned to build a sofa from armchairs. You just cover the sitting spot with some other type assets and pretend you don't know that it's not the same armchair. I doubt that anyone would actually notice it that much. So yeah. And now that I know that I have a lot of assets already on my map, I'm not searching for them in the folders. I'm just, if I know where they are, I'm just grabbing them and copy pasting them in a proper space. Holding shift, I randomize the assets over here, so they also are misaligned in reference to each other. They don't have this natural wooden-like color, so I'm gonna fix that in a moment. That's because if they are randomized, the color is also randomized, so you have to go into hue and just go back to 50, so the default amount of hue. The small room over here was a big problem for me because I don't have any toy assets, so I had to go into Forgotten Adventures assets, sadly. I think I don't know how many people produce and draw the assets for Forgotten Adventures, but they have like everything. They have everything. If you need a toy, they will have a toy. If you need, I mean, you will see it in a minute or two, that there will be something over there. I used some debris or some other things that could be used over here, but yeah, a rocking horse, and they have it. But you can see me also trying to figure out where to find things. Yeah, that was the hardest thing to find for this entire map. Yeah, so basically we're nearing the end very quickly. The map is, I think, almost ready in 100%. I'm gonna work with the shadows in a minute or two. This is a big thing, the locking all types of some asset. It makes it makes a huge difference. I'm not exactly sure if I used this technique here. Does it fit? Yeah, I had to copy them separately. Some of them are lines, typical lines, and some of them are polygon lines, straight lines, polygon lines, and other types of lines. It made a difference for the map. Some of the lines that I had were shadows for stairs, for example, so I had to deselect them, find them and deselect them later on. So yeah, there's that. Now you have all the shadows above. I'm going to push them back, and then I'm going to push them up with the walls themselves, so they also cover the assets. Like over here, everywhere you can see that every, I don't know, wardrobe or a shadow or a statue or something else is in a way also covered with, partially, it's almost at least with shadows. I did have to correct all the doors, sadly, because doors are not line assets, so they didn't copy it over there. So yeah, I had to do it by hand, and again, push the doors upwards or push the shadows downwards one by one. It's not that much of a deal. There were like, I don't know, 20 doors or something like that over here, so nothing huge, nothing super problematic. I think the effect is pretty neat. And there's always little stuff that you could correct and you could perfect and you can make better. What I learned is that there's always going to be something wrong with the map. I mean, you can work with it for days and days on, and there's still going to be something that's not perfect, or you could have done it better. That's how it is. The circular shadows sometimes stretch, like over here. I use them just to outline some of the assets. Over here, for whatever reason, I didn't have chests that were supposed to be on tables. I think I forgot about them. Now you can see that the shadows are on top, and I'm going to push them back and make some of them smaller, sometimes even barely visible, but still they do give some depth to the build. A double half circular shadow to indicate what's the direction of the staircase. A railing made from, I think it's an asset made for fences, but it fits here nicely. It looks like a wooden piece, so it fits nice. Luckily, I also have a smaller one. And now I'm pretty positive that we are nearing the end over here. yeah, I think we're basically almost there. There are some, as usually with me, there are some assets, some splatters here and there, especially on wood. I've done my good share of working with wood in my history. I did a lot of things with furniture, so believe me or not, there's always something, some splatters, some spills on wooden textures like that. And although there's nothing happening around the buildings, the story is basically inside the building itself. I did decide to go with some trees and some rocks and some other terrain assets, just to make the map as a whole look nicer, just like that. Oh yeah, the shadows of the corners. So these are the assets that I probably overused over here in this map. I forgot that I also used them. These are actually maybe unnecessary over here. I could have just leave them out. I mean, I didn't, probably because it's a habit for me right now to use shadow assets, but they should be smaller. These make the rooms very, very dark. I'm not sure if they should be so dark. There were no windows in the rooms on the map, on the original map, so I'm not using them here also. But yeah, it's everything looks super, super dark because of them right now. So that's also something I'm not super proud of. Probably would do it slightly different if I could again. But yeah, as also mentioned, you can work on a map for weeks and days and months, and there's always going to be something to correct and always going to be something that you could have done better. So yeah, I decided not to focus on that. In one of the videos that I will post in some foreseeable, hopefully, future, I will also show you a new trick with how to create shadows for objects that are better fitting for or easier for mass objects. But I think we're finally there. What am I searching for? Oh, right. Usually when I build buildings like this, I usually surround them with an outline of some type of other terrain asset. Because buildings usually, if you have grass, for example, the grass would not go exactly up to the spot where the wall is. So I'm covering all the edge cases, let's call them, with dirt asset. So there's also some kind of contrast between the background terrain and the building terrain and the building corner or the building edges, building walls that you can see over here. Yeah, that's also something that I started to do pretty recently. I decided this is simply the way to go. You'll notice in a moment how it works. Right now they also cover the wood, but if you would if you would delete that and deselect it, yeah, this is how it should work and should look. So you have the dirt asset over here, and it's exactly below the building, but above the grass. For whatever reason, I seem to have not sped up this part of the video, but probably because it's the end of the video right now, so there's not much to speed up. I don't remember if that was my mistaken montage or something else. Oh, one last thing I noticed, there are corner walls over here that just got pushed down under the lines for some reason, so I'm just grabbing them and pushing them outside again so they cover the corner cases over there. Yeah, that's the colored Strixhaven. I don't know how many assets over here are, how many I used, but not that much. As mentioned, this map could be much richer when it comes to stuff you can you can find on it. The whole lower part is empty, nearly, the main hall, but yeah. So, thanks a lot for watching. This has been under Speedbuild from me. If you want to see something specific, you can write me a comment or whatever else. I'm usually rather receptive. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you around, and take care. Bye.